So you've also written with great admiration about our soldiers. In fact, I'll read a line from your book which said, "Their courage writes the history of this nation." So how do you see your role as an author in shaping this narrative and bringing out more such stories so that we really understand the bravery and the courage that goes behind
So, when I grew up as a young student, we used to have these, and I keep saying this every time someone asks me a question like this, we used to have these commando comics, which were British origin comics, which, brought out these wonderful stories of the Second World War. And those are the kind of inspirations that I grew up with in my growing up years. Unfortunately, there was nothing like this available in the Indian context even later. We did have some comics coming out on PVC winners and all, but I really thought that they didn't do justice to the gentlemen. So I want to capture these stories of courage and sacrifice in the context of the Indian environment.
Yes.
And I want to create this kind of literature which will educate, which will tickle, and which will kind of mature the Indian nation as such to the sacrifice that have been made. And I want these stories to be captured before they are lost.
Yes, yes.
So
I think that's the most important part.
It is an important journey that I've embarked on, and I'm trying to do that.
I think you're doing justice to it, I think that gap in literature that you've mentioned, especially with regards to Indian soldiers, Indian context, I think that is very evident in the market. I think now it's good to see authors actually come up, right, and share these stories with the world, because I think that's the only way that we preserve our history, preserve the valor, and also commemorate, the memory of.
So unfortunately, so far, every book that has been written by someone with a services or a military background are far too technical and they're far too heavy for a civilian without any background or insight into the services to read.
Yes.
They sound more like battle reports, which have been converted into books. I have been wanting to write stories which are creatively written, which are cinematically written, which can evoke or inspire you to think of places which you've never visited before, which conjures up all this imagery of these places, the action scenes and everything else. And I didn't want it to be too technical. I wanted it to be very easy, and I wanted it to be very cinematic.
I think the book very much achieves that, because I feel I've been on the other side reading the way you said, battle reports जैसे लगता है वो समझ ही नहीं आता कि क्या लिखा है. So I've been on that side as a reader as well. So I think this book at least make sure that the reader is thoroughly engaged and make sure that you're really bringing to light the stories without having the reader confused in different terms and different abbreviations, because that does become a challenge and a hindrance.
So also 3-4 things that I kind of thought of while writing this book. So while this book was on Major Sudhir Walia, and it is titled Rambo, and he's the central figure, but a lot also went into making him that.
Yes.
So I wanted to also bring out the men who were with him, and each of those characters have been fleshed out in great detail. I didn't want to put in because there were so many characters and there's so many men that he's worked with, but I had to pick and choose, and unfortunately that was not a process that I enjoyed, because each of them deserved a mention, but I have tried to pick people and I have fleshed them out because they also have contributed to the narrative, and they are equally important to the narrative. So that was a conscious effort that I did, though I was writing on Major Sudhir Walia, but I just didn't concentrate on him, but I concentrated on the other characters around him and fleshed them out in their detail and gave them recognition as much I could. The second part was that I also wanted to talk about the higher thinking and the environment as such, which normally again goes missing in books like this, because it's so concentrated and so pinpointed on the
Yeah.
character. So I have probably read through about 6 books from Pakistan, which were published in Pakistan when I was writing the Kargil part of it, because there are I wanted to get that thinking into the
Correct.
book, and there was no book in the Indian market which actually talked about the Pakistani perspective.
Correct.
We all talked about our own
Correct.
perspectives. So I picked up books from Pakistan to actually read the Pakistani perspective, and if you go through it, there are some very interesting examples or narratives which have come out from those books. My times in Kashmir and in schools of instruction also gave me an insight into the working of the jihad and the militant thinking, which also I've tried to bring in. So those are the kind of perspectives that I have kind of included in the book. And last is the general thinking in Kashmir. What is the common man thinking? How are they thinking? What are the problems they face? How do they grapple with it? So those kind of viewpoints and points of view have also been included, which probably gives it a little.
I think we fail to realize what
Perfect.
goes on behind a book. It seems like a simple book, but the kind of research, the kind of effort that goes into developing that storyline, making sure it's authentic, it's clean, it's clear,
So
it's
even
massive.
especially those perspectives of Kashmir, which I have put in, have come through reading, and also, of course, by talking to a lot of people. I've traveled to Kashmir myself. I mean, in those days, of course, I was in touch, but even today, I had to travel and speak to people and understand those narratives of that time to kind of get the authenticity. Correct.
How long did it take you to write this book?
It's been almost 3 years.
Wow. Wow. Wow.